I believe the year is still young, and therefore I want to wish you a happy new year. And of course, the first webinar series that we are going to have, the 13th CPST webinar series on effective framework towards efficient urban areas and cities. I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the host, that is Professor Nyokabi Kamau, EBS, that is the Executive Director of CPST. My name is Owino Harrison, the Chair of the Webinar Planning Committee. Allow me at this particular time to have a word of prayer before we start the program. Let's pray. Almighty God, we call upon your wisdom, favor, and blessing as we execute responsibilities you have bestowed upon us. We seek your guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just, fair, and faithful a manner, as to advance the peace, prosperity, and wealth of our country and of those whose interest you have committed to our church. Amen. Allow me, our facilitators and the participants for the 13th webinar series. I believe we have our facilitators on board as we want to start. Allow me to acknowledge and appreciate those who have joined the webinar. I want to appreciate most sincerely our speakers for today. We have the keynote speaker. We have John Barre, our discussant. We have Abala Wanga, that is the city manager of Kisumu. And of course, we have the main speaker, that is John Barrett, strategic urban development consultant. We are yet to be joined by the moderator of the hour, who is Dr. Eric Aligula. I believe he is about to join us. I just want to request our technical team, please get in touch so that we can get to know how far he is to join us in this particular webinar series. Given that he's the moderator, I would want him to join, then we start immediately.
Chair, I'm in the meeting.
Thank you. Okay. You joined using a different name, so I may not have been in a position to know that you are in. All the same, allow me to appreciate each and everyone on behalf of the host, Professor Nyokabi Kamau. Let me introduce the moderator of the hour, and it is our pleasure and a single honor to have Dr. Eric Aligula Magolo, EBS, MPK, MBS, who is currently the head of Ocean and Blue Economy Office in the Office of the Chief of Staff, Head of Public Service, the Executive Office of the President. Mr. Aligula has served in various portfolios, including Secretary Policy, Development, Monitoring and Evaluation, that is 2020 to 2023. He has also been economic advisor and the Secretary, Infrastructure and Economic Advisor 2014 to 2020. He joined also the Secretary to the Parastatal Reforms Implementation Committee in 2013 to 2017. He was also Executive Director, Kenya Institute of Public Policy Research and Analysis, that is in 2012, 2013. He has over 18 years of experience and has been driven by a simple belief that data and evidence-based innovative solutions to public policy challenges can do changes to life or can change lives. He also will always be committed to wavering and delivering public policy with purpose. It is my single duty and honor to invite the moderator of the hour for the CPST 13th series webinar, Dr. Eric Alugola, as our moderator for the hour. Please welcome, and we appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the introduction. I'd like to welcome everyone, all the participants to the meeting. My task is very simple: to introduce the presenter and also the discussant, and to request them to undertake their duty in respect of this meeting. So without much ado, I will start by introducing the presenter, Mr. John Barre. John Barre is currently the principal consultant and director of strategic urban development consultants in Kenya. He has about 40 years professional working experience, and I've had the privilege of working with him in the past. He's a chapter member of the Africa Circular Economy Network. He's a member of the Nairobi Physical and Land Use Planning Liaison Committee, representing the Kenya Institute of Planners. He is a registered and licensed to practice as a town planner. He is a corporate member of the Kenya Institute of Planners. He's also registered with NEMA and the Environment Institute of Kenya as an environmental impact assessment expert. He has wide experience, having worked in the then Ministry of Works and Housing, the Nairobi City Commission and City Council, amongst others. So I believe he is well suited to give the lecture today, and I invite Mr. Barre to proceed and give the presentation. You have, I think, 25 minutes or 30 minutes? 25 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Aligula, the moderator, and all protocols observed. I want to believe the presentation has already been put up, and I want to thank you for the honor to make a presentation today. We go to slide number 2, which gives an outline of today's presentation. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, the outline there has given a number of issues, and I thought it is good to look at international conventions that we have incorporated. Slide 2. Go to slide 2. Yes, that is the outline, and we look at constitutional provisions and basis for development, and then there are some frameworks on national land use policies, national urban development policy, the National Spatial Plan, and then the Urban Areas and Cities Act, out of which we look at also the County Government Act and the Physical and Land Use Planning Act number 13 of 2019. And from there, move to issues of development control in urban areas as provided by the Physical and Land Use Planning Act and the EMCA, the Environmental Management and Coordination Act of 1999. Thereafter, we will look at also some controls, development control issues. Next slide. Looking at effective frameworks internationally, these conventions are important, and the benchmark is the Rio Earth Summit resolution that produced a blueprint for global action on environment and sustainable development. that UN member states adopted and signed to implement, initially as MDGs. From there, in 2015, the MDGs converted to SDGs. And I want to draw members' attention, particularly to SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities that governs the development of cities and helps to draw them as engines of growth that need to be protected. And thereafter, there are city development strategies that are looked at and international best practices that Kenya has also copied from. At home here, under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, Article 66 has given a provision for regulation and control of interest in land and the right over it and the development of the same. And Parliament has already enacted legislation to help implement this. Next slide. Under Article 60 of Constitution of Kenya, there are certain principles that have been given that are cardinal, and that land shall be used and managed equitably, efficiently, productively, sustainably, in accordance with principles listed therein in that article. Let's move on to the next that looks at Article 60, Sub-Article 1. There are issues of equitable access to land, efficient and sustainable use of land, knowing that land is an elastic resource, and then observation of sound conservation and ecological sustainability of land, and order and harmonious use of land. And from there, you look at access to land information and technological advances. And finally, issues of use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. Let's move on by communities. There again, in Article 66, the state has the power to control the use of land and interest on it or over it, and subject to various interests like defense, public safety, public order, morality, health, and not the least land use planning. And parliaments have already done their work of legislating. Let's move to the next. In the next one, we look at the Article 69, which also gives obligations in respect of the environment, and that the state shall ensure exploitation, utilization, management, and conservation of the environment and natural resources to ensure equitable sharing of the accruing benefits. And here again, we look at how protection and enhancing intellectual property in indigenous knowledge and biodiversity and the genetic resources of the community. And in all these, again, subparagraph D talks about public participation, which is an important tenet in our Constitution. And this will help us as we move forward. Let's move to the next slide. In the next slide, I look at National Urban Development Policy as a framework. And the Kenya government has prepared this framework from 2015 to 2030 as a blueprint to create sustainable urbanization, focusing on 3 thematic areas of urban management, covering urban governance, finance, and economy. Then urban core issues, which look at urban planning, land infrastructure, climate change and adaptation, housing, where you can see housing and affordable housing has come into the fray, and disaster and risk management. The third area is Kenya's sustainable urbanization. Looking at it reflectively, historically, 1963 at independence, we had only 8% of the population as urban. By 2009, 34% of Kenya's population was urban. By 2015, it had moved to 40%. And it is projected that it will be at 50% by 2030. And by 2050, it will have moved to 75 or 80% of the urban population. next slide then continues to show us the importance of national urban development policy, because urban areas in Kenya contribute about 70% of gross domestic product. Yet urbanization has continued to occur without an urban development policy before 2015. Now in Kenya, we have 5 major cities that work in liaison with secondary urban centers, growth centers, and market centers to move our development in urbanization. And therefore, the National Urban Development Policy's main goals actually is to guide urbanization and provide a framework for sustainable urban development. And in the next slide, we look at the 4 main objectives of the National Urban Development Policy Framework: to promote effective governance and management of urban areas, build efficient financial management systems, create systems for vibrant economic growth and development of urban areas, and then mainstream spatial planning to drive urban development. Let's move to the next slide, which looks at urban development framework and the challenges. Because there are a multiplicity of public, private, and civic and bilateral agencies that deal with planning, development, and management in urban areas. Yet, there is inadequate framework for coordination of multiple agencies in urban area sector, in the urban sector. There is also inadequate budgetary allocation for urban areas by the national government and county governments. There is inadequate institutional capacity that entails skills and competency inadequacy. And there is urban land utilization. There is non-optimal use of land resources that lacks commensurate infrastructure development, because many times our infrastructure development lags behind the demand for land use and serviced land resources, and then lack of compliance with the development control guidelines. And one last but not least is the issue of the peripheral areas development and omission of urban agriculture in many of our cities and towns. Next slide. We look at the National Spatial Plan, which is a blueprint plan from 2015 to 2045 that gives a long-term spatial plan for 30 years from that date, according to Article 60, which focuses us on land use, socioeconomic, and environmental issues in Kenya's equitable use of land. It also seeks to achieve balance and sustainable development and optimal land use in the country, and provides a national spatial planning framework for integrating socioeconomic and political policies, and most importantly, realization of principles of equity, sustainability, and land use tenets of efficiency, productivity, and sustainable development. Let's move to the next. This National Spatial Plan, the NSP, has 4 main objectives: to strengthen national economic planning by anchoring national economic policies, coordinate sectoral agencies by providing a spatial context, then formulate physical and spatial planning policies for supporting socioeconomic and sectoral planning, and guide formulation of regional, county, and local spatial plans. For example, the Nairobi Metro plan that covers Nairobi, Kajiado, Murang'a, Machakos. It draws from this, though it was prepared a little bit earlier. The next slide. In the next slide, we look at urban areas under the UACA 2011, County Government Act of 2012, and the Physical and Land Use Planning Act as frameworks that are important. Urban areas and cities have been given a framework on the UACA law of 2011, which was revised in 2019 to promote establishment of cities by bringing down the population threshold from 500,000 to 250. In Part 5, of that act, it provides an integrated development planning framework for every city, and that in every city or municipality established under WACA, they shall operate under an integrated development plan. This is important to give effect to urban areas and cities as stated in that law, and it is to achieve objectives of devolution as stated in Article 174, subparagraphs A to I, which are listed there. Let's move on to the next slide. In the Urban Areas and Cities Act, it is the basis for formulation of environmental management plans, valuation roles for property taxation to help on source of funds be mobilized locally, physical and social infrastructure and transportation services, preparedness and rapid response to emergencies, and then nature and promote orderly, sustainable development of informal commercial activities as well as settlements, and also be a framework for controlled urban agriculture. There are other details there. We can move to the next slide. The next slide looks at County Government Act of 2012. And in Part 11, it provides for county planning. And it is very interesting that Parliament, in its wisdom, provided that Section 1 or 2 gave principles of planning and development facilitation. And this is very well connected to SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities that looks at 3 ingredients to protect and integrate rights and interests of minorities and the marginalized, protect and develop natural resources as per the national county government policies, and promote equitable resource allocation in Kenya. In Section 104, it provides a mandatory requirement that no public funds will be appropriated unless there is a plan as based on the county integrated development plan provided for in Section 108. And it is very interesting that in Section 108 of the County Government Act, this plan, the CIDP, which is a 5-year plan, takes precedence over the one in Section 110, which is the County Integrated Spatial Plan, which ordinarily should precede the 5-year plan. But this is the case as it is. But Section 110 stipulates that every county shall prepare a county integrated spatial plan. But there are only 17 counties to date that have already prepared plans. And I think about only 6 that have been approved by their county assemblies. And out of that, another 6 are remaining and pending approval. So in total, about 23 counties have attempted to prepare county integrated spatial plans in Kenya to date. So you can see the challenge. As we continue, let's look at the importance of the county integrated spatial plan, which is stipulated by Section 10. And it is supposed to be integrated with a GIS, a georeference information system, to help us move around quickly. The County Integrated Spatial Plan provides a depiction of socio-economic development programs in a county. And for example, the spatial plan ought to be linked to regional plans like the Nairobi Metro Plan or the Nairobi Metro Strategy that have been prepared, for example, around Nairobi, Machakos, Kajiado, Murang'a, and the neighboring counties. It is necessary to realize that in Section 111 of the County Government Act, city and municipal plans are required to provide a number of plans like land use plans, building and zoning plans, and urban area building and zoning plans, and recreational and public facility plans to help county governments control development. In the next slide, we come to the 3rd framework of the plan, which is the Physical and Land Use Planning Act of 2019. And it has provided a number of things. For instance, it has given jurisdiction to the County Executive Committee member in charge of lands, physical planning, and built environment to prepare plans. Secondly, it has provided an area for a provision and a jurisdiction for the county executive committee member to be able to control development in their area of jurisdiction. And thirdly, is that people who want to undertake development in respective counties in Kenya have to apply through their registered physical planners or town planners to get permission from the county executive committee member. And where the county executive committee member in charge of planning and land use finds that development has been commenced without him or her granting permission, then they will take action against that person, and there are legal provisions for that. Next slide. The next slide shows how the county executive committee member, in considering applications for development, particularly section 61, subparagraph 1, A to E, has to look at the law and the constitutional requirements for public participation for those seeking development. And there is a provision that for those who are not satisfied, then they can seek redress through appeals. Next slide. Now, in the next slide, we look at the requirement again for openness of development in our urban areas. And the law in the Physical and Land Use Planning Act provides that there should be a register opened by the county executive committee member so as to be able to maintain this register and issue certificates to those who apply, and then have a register that is maintained that can be inspected by the public. And you can see the cardinal rule of public participation in all our planning, our programs, and our projects undertaking. Let's move to the next slide. The next slide now gives an example of a county approval of a change of use, and I've taken an example from Nairobi. And in this prescribed form called PLUBA / Development Control / 8, which is an approval, you can see this particular example has been given, and that particular developer, move to the next slide, the conditions for approval, A to K. And I would like to just highlight F and K. In condition F, it talks about subject to compliance with the approved zoning policy. This presupposes that a county has a zoning policy. It has zoned its area. When it has a county integrated spatial plan, a broad brush plan, it goes to subject plan and zoning plans, which go up to the neighborhood or village or smaller areas to guide development. Then when they make approvals, they will condition those approvals to the zoning, the character, and socioeconomic typologies of development in specific areas. Then you go to condition K, subject to the development maintaining the residential character and the densities of the area. That is an example. If you are in a place like Kilimani or Kileleshwa in Nairobi, those particular zones are in zone 4 of Nairobi. And the main characteristic of development there is residential, though there are other minor developments like secondary centers, which are given as examples. So you are told to maintain the residential character. And if it is a town like Westlands, which is a secondary city supporting the CBD of Nairobi, then the character of the Westlands designated secondary center becomes different from the principal neighboring residential areas. Let's move next. Those are almost 24 zones in Nairobi as an example, as a table, and various zones I know in Kisumu, for example, they have 4 development zones. When you go to Machakos, you will find their zones are not just all over, but they are based on the sub-counties, the same way Kiambu County has put zones based on their 10 or so sub-counties, so that each sub-county has their zones peculiar to development in their areas. Be they tea growing areas like Limuru sub-county, or in Red Hill,
John,
Kentemere area. So these are the examples that I have. And finally, the example of enforcement. There's a development there you can
John,
see.
you have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm finalizing. I'm finalizing. When you go to the one with the picture where there is flooding, this is an example of control of development in flood-prone areas, so riparian areas. I dealt with this when I was still a civil servant in 2014 and 15, and we advised the developer that this initially, in fact, was the land management allocation, which was a problem. They were allocated land in a riparian reserve. So to develop it as a resource which is inelastic, conditions were there that they keep 10 meters from the riparian reserve. The developer never did that. When floods came in May 2015, the place was flooded. We made controls, negotiated, but the developer decided to be disobedient. So later we took the law, the repealed Physical Planning Act, which required that 15 meters be met, and the MCA also maintained the same. So we disapproved the development. To date, in 2018, after I had retired, the whole thing was demolished, and the area is now a green area along Langata Road and Gong River. So these are the issues that we need to look at, even as we come to the end, that the MCA has also given provisions for development, for conservation, biodiversity, and sustainable development. And no development in Kenya under Section 58 of the MCA 1999 and revised 2015 will be done without getting an NEMA license. And those are required to help conserve and look at the intergenerational equity that is required globally and in Kenya. And thank you, members, for listening to me. The other things you can look at, and if you have any questions, then we will be able to discuss through the discussant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I'm not sure how we will give you a round of applause, but be sure that the team has given you a round of applause.
The environmental one.
As you, yes, it did. As you settle down, you can check in the chat box. There are some questions that have been directed to you, which you will answer maybe after the discussant. So I would like to invite the discussant to this presentation, Mr. Abala M. Wanga, City Manager, City of Kisumu. Mr. Wanga is a distinguished public servant and governance expert, presently serving as the City Manager of Kisumu City. In this capacity, he spearheads the transformation of Kisumu into a smart city and oversees the implementation of the recently launched Kisumu City Local Physical and Land Use Development Plan, affordable housing projects, and development approvals and controls. He has a career spanning over 2 decades in the public service and has held pivotal roles, including acting as the inaugural Secretary and CEO of the Kisumu Lakefront Development Corporation and as CEO of the Lake Region Economic Bloc, encompassing 14 counties within the Lake Victoria Basin. He commenced his career in the health sector, serving as the CEO of the Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologists Board. He is an alumni of the Strathmore University Business School, Kampala International University, from where he obtained an LLB, and he has received a diploma from the Medical Laboratory Technology from the Kenya Medical Training Center. Mr. Wanga would like to invite you to give a discussion on the presentation by Mr. Bare, and you have 10 minutes starting now. Mr. Wanga, karibu. Is Mr. Wanga in the house?
I'm fully in the house. Am I clear enough?
Loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish to take this opportunity to extend my sincere gratitude to the planning and organizers of this webinar. I'm also feel so privileged and so honored to be one of the discussants after much consideration to be chosen among the over 52 million Kenyans. So I'm so happy and be privileged to be discussing with you today. I want to be very candid and very honest with you on my presentation and tell you our experience here in Kisumu. I will dwell much on Kisumu in terms of urban planning and urban management and give you delve a bit deeper into the what we face in managing our cities in Kenya. For the last 4 years, I was appointed city manager. I came here after serving as a CEO of Lake Region Economic Bloc, where I left briefly and we concocted with the governor of Kisumu, what we call the Lakefront Development Corporation, to look into issues of how we can have a special purpose vehicle to develop the Kisumu waterfront. So when I arrived in Kisumu city as a city manager, we faced a lot of Herculean tasks. My predecessor had laid foundation, Dr. Doris Omara, and she done a wonderful job. But the problem was we were still going through the designing of the Kisumu city geospatial plan, what John was talking about. And it was not complete, but we are wading through how we can reorganize our urban system based on donor support and what we felt cities would look like in terms of parameters that I'll take you through. And now, through that process, we've completed, and now Kisumu has a new geospatial plan. Kisumu City, let me be Kisumu City. Kisumu, Eldoret, and Nakuru are different. They have different uniqueness. They're not like Mombasa and Nairobi. Mombasa is a city county and Nairobi is a city county. Kisumu is a city within a county like Nakuru and Eldoret. So, you know, we have our municipal board under Urban Areas and Cities Act and all those laws that govern us. So you find that we have a city within a county, but we still an agent of the county. We draw a lot of functions from the county, but we operate under Urban Areas and Cities Act and any other relevant laws that would be applicable together with what Urban Areas and Cities Act, which is our core law that we use. So we have our land use, Kisumu land use and physical development plan, which has been enacted recently and it has been launched. That is what we are going to follow for the planning of Kisumu for the next 15 years. And it has zoned Kisumu in different categories and created 10 new growth nodes. So we are following that. It is not easy to follow that process, but basically, before I go into that, I wanted you to understand that under Urban Areas and Cities Act, we have functions. Functions that cut across what we do in the city. These functions have challenges. We have promotion and regulation and provision of refuse collection and solid waste management. We have promotion and provision of water and sanitation services and infrastructure in areas within the city not served by water and sanitation process. We have construction and maintenance of urban roads and associated infrastructure, construction and maintenance of storm drainage and flood controls, construction and maintenance of recreational parks, green spaces, and other green areas, construction and maintenance of streetlights, construction, maintenance, and regulation of traffic controls and parking facilities, construction and maintenance of bus stands and taxi stands, regulation of outdoor advertising, construction and maintenance of regulation of city markets and abattoirs, construction and maintenance of fire station, provision of firefighting services, emergency preparedness and disaster management, promotion and regulation and provision of city sports and cultural activities, promotion and regulation and provision of animal control and welfare, development and enforcement of city plans, building and development controls, what John was talking about, city administration services, including construction and maintenance of administrative offices, promotion and undertaking infrastructure development and services within the city, pollution controls, air, noise, those people who play open bars and make noise in the city in regulated areas. Any other function delegated by the county government of Kisumu, underline number 20, any other function delegated by the county government of Kisumu. In addition, we also collect revenue. All these functions are performed by the municipal centers, city and municipal centers. If I talk in totality, we have over 101 urban centers. Now, the challenge we have here is these functions must be transferred to us by the executive, or else how we have been operating before, we perform these functions, but revenue is collected by county government, and all services we render are paid at the county treasury. We do the budgets, and that has really hindered the process of performing these functions. So there's a demarcation, and under clear demarcation, John was talking, he's talking about CIDP and CISP. The CIDP is the general county planning system, which we incorporate the city into in terms of what we do for the next 5 years. And the CSSP is the county, the special plan for the county. Separate special plan for the county and special plan for the city, in this case, for Kisumu. So Kisumu has its own city, has its own geospatial plan. The county is yet to develop the special plan. So when we perform the geospatial plan, we perform it under the function transferred to us and are answerable to a board. There's a municipal board, the city board, which is rigorously appointed through Urban Areas and Cities Act provisions. The process is so elaborate. And then we have the board chairman and the board committees. We have all those functions I've mentioned. They have subcommittees on those boards. And when I came in, the hindrance, the big hindrance in this process was even paying my board members' allowance. I had to provoke the county treasury to pay it. So you can imagine, you have the tools of operations, but the proper tool of operation, which is financial control, is somewhere else. Even if I have to collect the garbage, I have to use my trucks. They have to go to the garage, process the payment, and go the other direction. But now it is good because the State Department of Urban Planning and Council of Governors has really encouraged counties to transfer functions. My governor, being a very transformative experience, public servant, a month ago and 2 weeks ago, transferred the functions. If you check today's standard, page 9, you all by stand page 9 and see that there's a public notice where the functions have now been transferred to us. All those things I was reading out. We have been, we now going to get the financial tool, and we have central bank as open to others. So we are going to align, because trust in financial prowess first is when you can deliver city. So if you see Nakuru, Eldoret struggling, it means those functions has not been transferred to them. I need to collect back garbage. I need to prepare drainage. I need to light the city. I need clean the city. I need to supervise all the parks. If I don't have the financial resources, because people must pay tax to me, and to be good enough, the governor has also transferred to us the functions to collect revenue on 4 streams, which will commence in February. We are discussing with our board to commence that process in February. We have been given land rates and other property rates, outdoor advertising, development and building plans and approvals, single business permits. And there's the CC for finance has appointed me as a revenue receiver. So I'm going for a retreat with my board to have the implementation plan. But I want to pick 3 key areas. Why you see cities?
2 minutes.
How many minutes? Yeah, 2 minutes that give me to pick 3 key areas where we have a lot of challenges. This thing called development plans and approvals that John was talking about. I think Parliament need to reconsider what we call PLUPA. This is the center of mess for planning the city. Because as Kisumu City, I need my board to organize the city. But there are characters who will sit there at the county and approve very draconian plans and very old and archaic plans to mess up a sector in a city. So the problem is within the development and building plans approval, which should be completely under the mandate of the city board and the city, because we understand the city. But if this function is not fully taken to us, it brings a lot of problem. And it means that we are curtailed here, such that if somebody is messing up in approving a bad building somewhere, because the PLUPA only assigned the CC for lands to be the final signatory of that plan. And it's open to abuse, and it's open to maneuver and cartels and land use. Finally, Kisumu, as my parting shot, Kisumu, we have organized ourselves. We're in the trajectory of 15 years. And we have said land use in Kisumu had been very low. 46% of land is lying vacant. Lying vacant doesn't mean it is just not there with a building, but it is misplaced. Like if we want to do a waterfront, I've given this example, and the guy has a home of 2 acres with semi-permanent buildings. This is a place where we should have a hotel and a convention center. Then such land should be transferred. That guy should be transferred very decently and let the serious investors. A city will never grow if land is not developed. The economic engine of a city is how well land is utilized, and it has the economic value. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wana Wanga. I will take advantage of being moderator to direct a question to both John and Wanabala. One thing I did not hear from both of you is exactly what we mean by efficient urban areas and cities, and therefore whether all the various instruments you've talked about and the challenges you face enable us to get to efficient urban areas and cities. I would like to hear your feedback on that. And as you answer those questions, I think there are at least 4 questions to you. We have exactly 9 minutes to respond to all the questions. And I will divide the those two between John and Wanga, if you could be short and sweet in responding within those 9 minutes. So look at the questions in the chat box and what I have raised. Please proceed.
Yes, just to proceed with your comment on efficient urban management of urban areas and cities. In Kisumu, efficient means a smart city concept. How quickly you deliver services that are required by the city residents. How quickly do you collect their garbage? How quickly do you clean the city? How quickly do you respond to risks, urban risks like floods? You know, there's the urban risk management that must be there in terms of disasters like fire. How quickly do you respond to fire? You see what's happening in Los Angeles. If that happens in Kisumu, are we able to mitigate such kind of disasters? How quickly do you respond to the needs of the residents of Kisumu? And how do you manage your security in terms of artificial intelligence, which in the next 6 months, Kisumu will be good to go. We have set a command room, a response center, ambulatory system, fire response, a flood, disease. You know, Corona came and it got cities off guard. How do you respond to such disasters? So an efficient city is a city with risk management process, which is so efficient and responsive.
Thank you, Bala. John? I'm sorry, John, we can't hear you. Could somebody unmute him?
Oh, yeah. I've unmuted. Hello? Yes, an efficient city presupposes that it is a planned city, and planning alone is not enough because the plan, as currently envisaged under our legislative frameworks, is that plan will also be put on a GIS framework so that you are innovative. You use technology, current technology, to be able to be efficient. The efficacy of the use of land and its development requires finances. And that's why strategic urban development plans must be financed so that the plan will only be efficient and efficiently rolled out and integrated with other sectoral plans when you finance it. And part of the financing also is public participation and capacity building of the citizenry within an urban setting or jurisdiction. So that will bring efficiency and information exchange to the people, all the stakeholders, so that as they participate, they take charge of their lives with knowledge and information. Thank you. The other one was how the current Urban Areas and Cities Act can guarantee continuity of implementation of county integrated spatial plans. And I think I've responded to it. And what I can add is that in urban areas, you will find that there is a city or town or municipal manager who is given delegated authority by the county executive committee member to prepare plans, subject plans, environmental plans, zoning plans to help implement the broader plan, the county integrated spatial plan. What is required for the various political or elites who will come to govern is that the long-term plan needs to be recognized so that it is not personalized, so that there is continuity, and that the people are enabled through public participation, capacity building, so that they own those plans, so that whoever comes as the next governor, the next county executive committee member, does not go away with a plan, but the plan remains with the people who, in monitoring and evaluation, they oversee the implementation and are able to work with the county government, both the technical and the political side, to see that their areas are implemented and they enjoy the continuity of an efficient and a planned and orderly city. The other question was, currently, how can governments balance the need for development control with innovation in urban planning and development? And I'm seeing this as an area of innovation where you build capacity. And COVID is an example where you look at a plan, and that's why plans are strategies. They are not blueprint plans, the old master plans. You are able to change it according to circumstances. So we need, within a plan, also, for example, a communication strategy that uses the new technology, innovations that we have. And it means that a planning area has to look at the social income capacities and disposable incomes of their people and enable them. Even informal settlements need to be orderly, organized, and these people can be able to locate their businesses in a way that it is meaningful and they earn money that will enable them to get smartphones. Finally, on how does the Urban Area and Cities Act adequately help in participation? There are two areas, the Urban Fora, Section 22, and the Municipal Board. Those need to be integrated, and the governors at the top need to devolve further up to the village level and devolve finances, because that is the area of devolution of finances. And the national government, through parliament and the controller of budget, need to see that finances reach the devolved governments and functions that have been transferred are given funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a question here directed to me to Mr. Bala, given the rapid urbanization and the unique challenges facing Kenyan cities, such as formal settlements, limited resources, and climate change, how can we effectively integrate traditional knowledge and indigenous practices into the development of sustainable and resilient urban framework? Would you provide specific example, if any of successful implementation? Now, this one goes to when you a city grows. My governor says the future is urban. When the city grows, as I was talking before, there's what we call, you have to consider a lot of urban resilience. If you come to Kisumu, there's a place called Kapothe and Auji area. There is a floody place with dikes constructed, but those people understand much about agriculture. If you go to the sides of Chiga, you find the emergence of industries and agricultural issues. So when you do urban planning on such areas, you have to consider what are the traditional cultural values that you don't bring urban planning to change their way of lifestyle and the way of thinking. So that's what we are talking about, urban agriculture and urban cultural values. Like Kisumu, we have the lake, the traditional economic income for many people along the lakeshore is fishing. So you cannot just do a waterfront without a fish landing site, without a fish processing industry, because they have to live with fishing and they have to sell the fish and transport the fish. When you go through the city that was well planned, which is one of the most planned global cities now, the Brasilia, the cultural consideration were put in place for Brasilia to emerge as a city. And the traditional cultural values of the settlers who were there before the city emerged were interfaced and integrated to be part of the city planning. And that is what we are trying to do in Kisumu. You don't go evicting people all at the lakefront, and you don't understand. You don't understand that the first thing they need to be earning a living for is fish, or you don't evict people where they are doing urban agriculture. So it is necessary to have a successful integrated cultural and traditional value when you're dealing with a component of settling people in an area. Thank you.
Hello, because there's time I could add. Hello, on integrating culture and development, it is important to look at traditional planning in our homes traditionally in the various diverse cultures in Kenya. And when people move to urban areas. Hello?
Yes.
John and Abala, I think we are running out of time. I'm going to give you 15 seconds each to answer this question from an anonymous attendee. What is your take on the issue of the function being delegated, but still the executive does not involve the board on the functions delegated? Just 10 seconds each before I return back to the hosts. 10 seconds each. John, and then Abala. Very short.
A delegated function still has jurisdiction from the person who has delegated them. And when they are delegated under the current requirement, delegate, it means is being transferred. I should be enabled by being given resources or funding to do it and then report back to the delegator. Thank you.
Thank you. Abala?
Yes, I've reiterated by my experience for the last 4 years. Let the executive delegate functions and transfer functions to the municipal boards and the city boards. These urban centers will not grow if those functions are not delegated, because there must be some level of semi-autonomy where you do your budget, you collect revenue. Revenue still goes to the county revenue fund. Collect revenue, you do your budget, you plan your things, and you pay for services promptly. If you don't do that, because the county is so wide and there are not many urban centers, if you don't transfer specific functions, then you will find yourself curtailing and derailing the development of urban centers. So I encourage the executive, I encourage the governors to emulate my governor, Professor Nyong'o, to transfer functions to the municipal boards and cities and city boards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John and Abala, for the very informative presentation. I'd like to hand over back to the Chair, Harrison Owino, for the next steps. And thank you very much for the privilege of moderating this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Moderator, over to you, Marianne, close.
Well, thank you very much, our well-able facilitators, and on behalf of CPST webinar committee and our host, Professor Nyokabi, would like to thank everyone for participating, and especially the facilitators. We have heard and we have seen how frameworks can work and enable devolution, especially for us. And case in point, we've had in things about Kisumu, which is very interesting. And this is a conversation that can that needs to be enhanced as we try to drive devolution and how people can participate in building the country. So thank you very much for each and every one of us and our participants. We have an end of webinar poll that is going to start. There are questions that you're going to ask you that you may please answer for us so that we are able to do this better. And as we end this, we'd like to ask you that we may continue deliberating and working together to ensure that we have devolution and that we work together well. Thank you very much, and over to you, our webinar host. Thank you for all this. And have a good day. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To all have a good day.
And be blessed. Thank you. Asante sana.